I saw a lot of games being a West Perth supporter, you know, at Leederville Oval, no longer our ground obviously, but the drop kick, loved the drop kick, and of course that's been outdated now for about, what, 20 odd years. Would you ever like to see it come in again?
It'll never come back in. But look, I reckon probably. I reckon even 30 years since the drop kick has been used. It's a long time ago. Look, again, I suppose the drop kick, when it was coming down, it was probably a bit softer than these drop punts that they spear at you to take a ball in your hands these days. But you know, again, you know, you look at Peter Hudson, used to mongrel punt every goal he ever kicked. You know, he could kick them from the boundary line, from wherever. It's just a skill. It's like anything. If you hone your skills and you continually practice them, you get better at it. So if anyone's game enough to do drop kicks out there, or the stab pass, or whatever they want to do, I'm sure that coaches have got no reason to grieve about it, as long as the person who's doing them is efficient and effective. Because the game is all about being effective these days.
Speed, and I suppose for the drop kick, you've got to be precise. There's no margin for error with the drop kick.
Well, on the same token, I mean, if you're going to do a long drop punt, you do get a fair bit of air, so it does take a long time to get to the other end. So I don't see that being any different to the drop kick. I just don't think that you can do a drop kick that may go 35 metres as a pass. That just doesn't travel quick enough.
It becomes more like a stab pass, as you said before. Right, so just to conclude, you know, you said that, you know, with your coaching you've had a lot of success, or I've said that, and as a player you got a lot of pleasure out of it. Obviously, if you had your time again, you'd stay as a player rather than a coach. But how much satisfaction do you derive from coaching, and how have you evolved over the last, say, 13 years with the Royals?
Oh, look, you just, you're coaching, if you're not always thinking about and always trying to improve what you're doing, you don't get better at it for a start. And I still try to look at ways of improving myself and the communication back to the players. And look, we've gone from having a very experienced group of footballers when I first come home to a lot of kids. Now, a lot of people probably think I'm still a kid, so I don't have that problem of being able to speak with them, talk to them. I think the most important thing is not to ignore people or players, and talk to everybody. Make yourself available, and don't put yourself on a pedestal, and just be there for whoever wants to talk to you. Now, a lot of people do have a problem in approaching coaches. I think a coach gets a far better buzz out of if a player comes to him and says, look, what am I doing wrong, or how can I go about fixing it? On the same token, a coach has always got to be making sure that he's giving feedback as well. But as far as playing and coaching, it's two different things. I would play footy forever. Being a player is far better fun than being a coach. At different times you've got to make decisions as a coach, which does hurt people's feelings, sometimes for a lifetime, as Derek Kickett and Kevin Sheedy know. And you know, you just but then again, if you're always trying to do and be as fair as you possibly can, there should be never any issue at the end of the day.
I think one of the difficult aspects, I think, of coaching would be to try and deliver a message. You've got 20 players out there, and some messages won't be perceived that well, where you could talk to someone direct, you know, and then another time you've got to pussyfoot around to get the message across to someone else. Or do you just try and say, right, here's the message? Because I was reading some of the notes here yesterday, and you were heavily influenced by Mal Brown, and we know how Mal Brown's approach to coaching was. From the outside, he seemed rather a belligerent man, and sometimes that method of coaching doesn't work. So what's your...
Well, going back to, I was very privileged. I had Mal Brown coach me in a stateside. I had John Todd coach me a few times, Ron Alexander. Obviously, I had Graham Moss. So I had Russell Ebert and Malcolm Blight in South Australia. And Jared Neesham over here. So I was very blessed in the coaches that I did have, because I believe I never had a dud. And Jared Neesham was the best teaching coach. He taught me that you had to teach. He was a school teacher himself, but he taught me that teaching people is the way to go. And the others all had their little bits and pieces, but Toddy and Malcolm Brown, I reckon they coached on fear. I'm not sure that that's a great way of going these days, but I think half of any of the young players today, if they were to front those two blokes, they'd probably they wouldn't be there anymore. They would have walked down the street, because they were very in your face. They were very strong at delivering, whether you were soft or whether you weren't doing the right thing. There was no kind words mixed in amongst it. But look, that's the way it was then. You know, you look at Ron Barassi and you see some of the things that you can see on TV, the way that he spoke to people. But they were still fantastic people in footy and fantastic coaches. So things have changed, and as long as you if you've been coaching for a long time, as long as you go with the modern way of people's thinking and also the way the game's changed, I think that's probably the way that you've got to coach today. So
So say if the cameras were at at Centennial Park and they'd be panning on you during a game in a tense moment, do you show your emotions, or are you deadpan and a good poker player?
No, I'm a lunatic. I'm a bit like David Park and talk down the phone the wrong end. But on saying that is my release to be able to concentrate on what's going on. Yes, I'm very verbal and vocal, but it's just a calming factor on my mind that's happening on the inside. The outside's not too flash, and probably apologise occasionally, but I'm a passionate man about footy. I try to make sure I get the best out of my players. I would envisage, if I'm not actually shouting at you, I probably think that you're at your best. If I'm shouting at you, I want a little bit more out of you. So, look, I'm not a poker player, no, and never have been very good at that. So, yes, I'll show me emotions. I'll wear my heart on my sleeve. What you see is what you get.
Fantastic.
And I don't hide anything, no.
Excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you, Darryl, and all the best for the Royals this year. What's your aspirations this year? Obviously, back-to-back premierships. How do you see you?
Look, we're going to be a very, very young side, very exciting. It's we've had some players that have left the footy club. 4 particular players. And in Chris Denny, a champion fella, and we've also had Jamie and Craig Bolton and Wayne Bolton, Packy. They've gone out to play with Borden. They've gone back into their own association where they come from. They come up from up there down into our footy club to play for a few years, and so those 4 quality players is definitely going to hurt us. But at the same time, every year, we'd turn over 10 to 11 players, and we'd also, be able to do that, to give opportunity for the kids that are coming through from the Colts. So you've got to be able to do that every year. We've loved having everybody at our football clubs who have been in premierships. Now, my main aspiration as a coach at the Royals Footy Club is to have so many in the premiership family, so many people who have been involved in premierships, because that's what you play footy for in the country. It's not money. It's not ego. It's to be a part of a family that's actually done something from day one, leading into a footy season and coming out with a premiership cup, and say that, well, I had something to do with it. We worked hard. We were able to achieve it, and that's the winning feeling that we want to get, and that's what we preach at our football club. And hopefully, again, we'll look at the season, it'll unfold. If we're winning games, we'd want to, first of all, we set our sights on winning enough games to make the 4.
Yes.
And from that point on, once you've got enough games in the 4, and you know that you're going to play finals, as to where you can finish inside the 4. So we take it step by step.
One week at a time, dare I say?
Well, that's an old adage, and it is 1 week at a time, but we take it in blocks of, of games and just see how we're travelling, and if we have to adjust. But look, everybody's aim, and it'll be the Albany Sharks' aim, is to win a premiership. That has got to be your main goal.
Yeah, excellent. Well, once again, thank you very much for your time, Darryl, and all the best for 2012.
Thank you very much.